How's it going, everyone? It's Ben Falcon's Media Corner back again with a brand new video for today. Welcome back to another movie review, aka After I Saw. This time for this new episode for the series is going to be my review on the 2024 supernatural comedy film, and this is the sequel to the 2021 film, while also being the fifth installment of this franchise that was created back in 1984, and that is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Now, this new entry to the Ghostbusters franchise was directed by Gil Kenan, which some of you may know him as the director of films such as Monster House, City of Ember, and the Poltergeist remake. And he also wrote this movie along with Jason Reitman, whom he helmed the last entry to the Ghostbusters franchise, and he also wrote that film as well, along with Gil Kenan, and reunites the same cast members that we all know from the last film, and also reuniting the original cast members that we all know and love from the original Ghostbusters movies. And in this new entry to the series is that when the discovery of an ancient artifact unleashes an evil force, the Ghostbusters, new and old, must join forces to protect their home as well as save the world from a second ice age. So that's pretty much the story of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Now, I really enjoyed Ghostbusters Afterlife. I didn't love it, but I overall had a really great time with the movie, even though people were very mixed with the movie, mostly due to the last act as well as with the fan service. But I overall had a really great time with the movie, but none of the other Ghostbusters movies will ever beat the original 1984 classic, because that movie will always still be the best when it comes to this franchise. Although I do enjoy the second one, even though it isn't as good as the original, but when it comes to the 2016 reboot of Ghostbusters, I still think the movie just overall is just okay, even though there are a few people out there who just tend to just despise the film, and there are even a few people out there who just tend to say that it's the worst thing that Hollywood has even made here. But I've seen far worse things out there on this planet. But when it came to this new entry to this franchise, of course, I was really excited for it, since, as I mentioned before in my review of Afterlife, I'm a massive fan of this franchise, and I was really happy to see the cast from the last film were coming back to do this new entry, like Mckenna, Carrie, Coon, Paul Rudd, and Finn Wolfhard, as well as with the original Ghostbusters themselves, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Ernie Hudson, and Annie Potts. And I was also really surprised to see some of the new cast members who are going to be in this movie, in which in this film you've got Kumail Nanjiani, who's a really funny actor, whom I loved him in movies such as The Big Sick, which is one of my favorite romantic comedies. And you also have Patton Oswalt as well, which is also a really funny actor as well. And I was also surprised to see that Gil Kenan was going to be helming this new entry to this franchise. And when it comes to his movies, I really enjoy Monster House, which is easy as best when it comes to his movies. However, for some of his other films, I just wasn't really a fan of. But I was still really intrigued to see what he was going to do with this new entry to the Ghostbusters franchise. And this film was supposed to come out last year in December, but it got pushed back because of the strikes that was going on. So it came out on the 22nd of March, and I did see this film on opening day in a really big screen with quite a lot of people on the screen that I was in. And after watching this whole movie here, unfortunately, I would have to say this is the weakest in the Ghostbusters franchise here. Although I wouldn't necessarily say this movie was awful, because I just thought this new entry to this franchise here was just overall just decent here. The first 10 minutes of this movie here I thought was pretty interesting, although after the first 10 minutes of this movie here, the way the film plays off here I thought was pretty slow, because the pacing for the film I thought was really bland, and yet the film is also kind of messy here as well. Even though when it comes to the comedy and the horror aspects of this film, it isn't too bad here. Like, the comedy in this film is enjoyable here. Like, there's a few funny lines of dialogues here and there in this film, although there were a few in this film that I just thought weren't even that good. But I wouldn't necessarily say they were cringe. The best way I can describe them is that they just weren't even that well written here. And there are times the film tries to be serious, and I kind of felt those moments in the film just didn't even work out that well here. It's mostly where we get to see some like family drama here and there in this film and all that, mostly due to with the character of Phoebe and all that. And speaking of that, there are even a few times where the film has a few plot holes here and there, and I kind of felt a few of them could have been handled a lot more better. Even one where we see like Phoebe's interaction with this ghost who's a young girl, and I kind of felt that aspect could have been handled a little bit more better and all of that. And when it comes to the final act of the film, it is enjoyable when we get to see some ghost-busting stuff here and there in this film and all that. And when it comes to the performances in this film, like the returning cast members from the last film, like for these new characters that we were introduced in the last film, like you've got Carrie, Coon, Finn Wolfhard, Paul Rudd, and Mckenna. They're all really good and really fun for the most part. And as for the original Ghostbusters themselves, you know, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, and even Annie Potts, They were really good and yet also really fun as well, although they're not in the movie that much. And as for the new characters in this film, I didn't mind them. And when it comes to the acting in the film, like Kumail Nanjiani, he plays this character who's trying to sell off some of his stuff in the film. I thought he was pretty funny in the movie. And you also have Patton Oswalt, in which he's this character who works at a library. I thought he was also pretty good as well, and he was also pretty funny as well. But overall, in the end, guys, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, unfortunately, I would have to say this is the weakest in the franchise here. But again, I wouldn't necessarily say this movie was awful. I just thought this was just overall a decent entry here. But if you're a massive fan of this franchise like I am, I can definitely tell you will definitely have a really good time with this new entry to this franchise here. So that's pretty much all I have to say about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I'm going to give Ghostbusters Frozen Empire 3 out of 5. Like I said, I thought this was just a decent entry to this franchise here. And like I said, there were a few things I did find myself enjoying with this movie quite a bit here. But for everything else that was surrounding this whole film here, did leave me a bit disappointed here. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching for my AKR First review on Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And let me know what you think of this new entry to this franchise. If you have seen this already or just recently checked out this film. Did you have a really fun time with this or you're very disappointed with this? As always, thank you guys so much for watching. And this has been Fogan's Media Corner signing off.